you all and to be here to demo Bubble with you all. My name is Diogene and I'm on the customer success team here at Bubble. And a little bit more about myself. Although I am a full-time Bubble employee, I am also a part-time founder, or in all of my other spare time, I work on my company called Remain. And I actually built the platform on Bubble. And I was also a part of Bubble's Immerse Founders in Residence program, which teaches young founders how to use Bubble to build their MVP in 8 weeks. So if you're new to Bubble, I have definitely been there before as well and have seen how you can really use the tool to leverage and grow your business. So let me go ahead and hop in. So a lot of you are probably really new to Bubble or possibly have never heard of it, and that's completely fine because this is an intro to Bubble. But for those of you who don't know, Bubble is the leading platform for building powerful web applications without having to use a single line of traditional code. So with this, our users have been able to develop, design, and deploy a full-fledged web application using our drag and drop visual editor and our cloud hosted platform. Just to show you all a few examples of what people have been able to build on Bubble. Bubble itself, bubble.io, the website is actually built on Bubble, which is kind of funny. The actual editor that we'll be going into today and building our application, however, is built on traditional code, but all of the other pages of the website are built with the site. Another web platform that has been built is Income.me, and it's an invoicing platform. So just to show that applications in different industries can also be built and leveraged with Bubble. Good Gigs is a social impact focused gig marketplace, and this was built by a founder who didn't have any prior technical experience. And Bubble really allowed for them to fully take control of their own mission-driven company and be able to really pivot their value proposition as they learned from their market. And just a few other examples, Not Real Twitter. So this is essentially a clone of the actual Twitter platform that someone was able to build on Bubble. Another type of app is called Dividend. And this is another one of those financial sector apps that was built on Bubble. It has a lot of automated processes, a lot of dynamic dashboards and billing features to help solve their users' pain points. And then last but not least, we have Coins, and Coins is probably one of our oldest and biggest clients that we have with Bubble. They've been with us almost since the beginning, and they have really expanded and leveraged Bubble as they've been able to grow. So they're kind of like our poster child for being able to scale with Bubble. So within the rest of this time here today, I will be going over the Bubble platform and really showing you all how to use it and highlighting some of the core features that you can utilize to build any type of app that you're wanting to build. So first I'll go over the app editor. So I'll do a rundown of the environment, what all of the different spaces mean and how you can utilize them to build your apps. We'll build a simple to-do app together. So like the traditional to-do list that you write on pen and paper, we'll try to create a digital version of that to really highlight some of those core features. I'll share some educational resources and where you can find some additional learning materials to continue learning on Bubble. And then with the time left, we'll have a Q&A. I hope that sounds good. So I'm gonna go ahead and hop in and start with the rundown of the app editor. So this is my Bubble home screen. And once you create an account, you will be taken to this screen where you can get to see all of the apps that you've created. Today, we're gonna create a new app, so I'll show you how to do that process. So you click on the blue new app button, and then it'll ask you a few questions about that particular app. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill that out now. 10, 6. And just fill out some of this other information. So with our platform, we offer templates that are created by other users in the community. And some of these templates are free and some of them are paid. However, if you acquire any of them, they'll start to populate here. And every time you create a new application, we'll have the option to create it from that template base. We won't be doing that today because we'll have a pretty simple app. And once you've finished filling out that information, you get to create your new app. So this environment that we're going into right now is the app editor. So this is where you get to design your pages. This is where you get to see your application's data in the database. You get to see your settings and configure any of your domains. All of those app specific things will be in this environment. And when you create a new app, you can either have the option to start with a blank page or start with this boilerplate. The boilerplate is just kind of like a page that has a lot of different elements on it already to kind of help you get started, but we'll choose a blank page today. And I'm gonna actually close the assistant this time because it'll do what I'm about to do, which is explain everything here in the app editor. So here in the app editor, we are first on the design tab, and we have different tabs over here on the left-hand side. So these are the different spaces that you can go into and get more information and make changes to your app. So first in the design space, this is where you get to design what your pages actually look like. So Bubble is a visual editor language. So with that, it's really easy to pick up one of these elements on the left-hand side here, such as a button, and easily draw it onto the screen or onto the page. And different elements have different formatting options or different properties. So for the button, we have a label. And it's also really easy to make changes to that label as well to really create a design that fits for you and your app. You can also pick up the element and reposition it anywhere on the page. To make it really easy for you to make those designs pretty quickly. So with the design page, it also allows for you to easily create workflows or different actions for these elements that you create on the page. So go into the workflow tab. There are actually two ways to get to it. One way is by clicking on the tab itself, and you can get to the space. The other way that I like to do that's a little bit quicker is by clicking on the element, and then in this black and gray box, which is the property editor, you have this start edit workflow button. So if you click on that, it'll actually take you to the workflow tab, and it'll also start a workflow event with that specific element. So when the button push me is clicked, and then you get to start adding the actions that you want it to complete when this event is triggered. So with the workflow tab, this is where you tell your app what it is you would like for it to do. So there are a lot of different actions that come by default in the Bubble platform, such as signing the user up, logging the user in, navigating to different pages within the app or external pages, being able to create new database records or modify existing records, sending emails, lots of actions that come natively with the platform. Next tab is the data tab, and this is probably one of my favorite tabs. So here you get to tell your Bubble app what it is that you would like to track and store within your application. So Bubble has our back in many different ways, and one way that Bubble has our back is by creating this user data type by default, because Bubble assumes that you want to share your wonderfully created app with other people and allow for them to use it. And in order to do that, they need to be users of your application. So with this data type, there are also a few built-in fields that we will be tracking, such as email, modified date, created date, as well as slugs, if you want to create really nice URLs for your users. But you can also create your own custom fields to track on each data type. For example, if we wanted to track the first name of each user as well, we could do that. by setting this field type to text because we'll be tracking a name, which is text. And now we'll be tracking that for each user. But if you decide one day that you no longer want to track that information, you can easily delete the field as well. And in the data tab, this is also where you would get to see all of your app's data. So in the sub tab of app data, this is where you'll get to see all of the database records. So it's separated by your different data types. So since we only have user as our data type, we only see this one here. But as more users begin to register for the app, you'll see different rows for that information. Next, we have the Styles tab. So this is where you get to create different styles that you can use all throughout your application to really make design pretty simple for your app. So as you can see, all of the styles are separated by the different element type, and that's because all elements, they have different properties and different formattings that you can edit for them. So that's why it's separated that way. And you can see that we just created this app and there are already a lot of styles in here already. So we'll just use these for today. Next, we have the plugins tab. There's nothing here because we don't have any plugins installed, but this is where you get to extend your app's functionality. So Bubble offers Bubble built, so built by Bubble engineers, plugins, as well as plugins built by individuals in our community. And a lot of these plugins really help your application connect to some of the common APIs that are out there. For example, if you have a marketplace app and you would like to have users be able to make purchases or sell items within your application, then you would probably want to install the Stripe plugin, which allows for you to be able to process payments within your application, set up checkouts within your application, allow users to sell items to other users. So being able to leverage all of those actions from Stripe within your Bubble platform. Next, we have the settings tab, and there's a lot of things you can do here in settings, such as upgrading your app's plan. You can set up your custom domain here. You can change your app's primary language, update your SEO information for your application, enable data APIs or backend workflows in your app. So lots of really cool things you can do here. And then last but not least, we have the logs tab. So in this tab, you get to track your app's performance. So this is a very new app. It has not been deployed. So there isn't really metrics to track on it just yet. However, if this was an app that was used a bit more or had been deployed, some things you could see here are how many page loads or page views you've gotten for each page in your app, how many workflows you've ran in a given amount of time, where in particular your application's capacity is going. Lots of really insightful information that you can take away from here. All right, so I've gone through the app editor and all of the different tabs. If you have any questions about anything I've covered in this segment of this training, definitely jot them down and I'll be sure to answer them during the Q&A. Right, so the next thing I'm going to cover is I'm going to present the finished to-do app that we'll be building today, just so you all can get an idea of the different features that we will be building out and the different concepts that we'll be talking about as we build this demo. So this is the to-do app. It's called Too Much To Do, and we allow users to sign up if they're new, and if they're an existing user, they can log in. I believe I have credentials already, so I will just log in. And then once the user logs in, we get to see this secondary group of information here, and it dynamically displays the date each day. And then there's a couple of input fields here. So we can create a title for a to-do item and our date, our due date, and then we're able to generate a new to-do. So demo app, select the due date, and add that to-do to our list. And then down here, we get to see all of our unfinished to-do items. And once we do finally complete one of them, we can click this icon here and it'll actually remove it from the list for us. And that same button we used to log in, we can click it again and it'll log us back out. So this will be a really approachable demo to really highlight some features that you can transfer to any type of app that you're wanting to build. So to get started, I'm actually going to go to our data tab first, because I personally like to start with understanding what data I am trying to track and store within the app before I build out the functionality of it. So in regards to the information we need to track and store, there are two high-level pieces of information. We need to track users as well as tracking to-do items. So we already have the user data type here, but I'm going to create another data type for to-do. So this way we get to track those to-do items that each user will create. So the to-do data type has also some built-in fields, but the only one that's different from the user's data type built-in fields are the creator field here. And this field is essentially going to store whichever user is logged in when a new to-do item is created. So this is how we will keep track of which user has created which to-do item, or which to-do item belongs to which user. So in regards to the to-do items, there are a few things we need to track in particular for each to-do. We need to be able to track a title. So I'm going to add a new field for title. And this will be a text field. We also need a field for the due date. So I'll add another field and title it due date and change it to a date field type. And then last but not least, we need a way to track whether or not a to-do item has been completed. So I'm going to create one last field and I'm going to call it done ? And the field type will be yes or no. So I like to add the question mark to the end of the name for my yes or no fields, because when I see the question mark, I will know that whatever value is in this field can either be a yes or a no. And then the second reason is that most of the time the yes or no field types are going to be answering a question of some sort. So adding the question mark onto done will allow me to understand that this field is tracking whether or not a to-do item has been completed. So I'll create that. And then the very last thing we need to do for our data structure is to default the done ? field to no, because we're assuming that every time you create a new to-do item or add it to your list, it has not yet been completed. So we're going to default that to no. So the next thing we do is go back to the design tab. So we have our data structure down. Next is to design what the app actually looks like. So I'm going to delete this button here that we had earlier. And looking back at our finished app, I'm going to start with building out these two elements here. So we have a text element for our title, as well as a button here. So I'm going to first grab a text element and I'm going to draw it onto the screen in the top middle. And then here I will delete the filler text that it supplies and I'll type out my title. Too much to do. So I can see that the styling of this title here doesn't really match the styling of the title in the finished app. So what I'm going to do is look inside of my property editor, this black and gray box here, and I'm going to scroll down until I get to this section called style. And this is where I will select one of those predefined styles to apply to my text. So if I click on the drop down, I believe this one is the style that I use in the finished app. So clicking on that, it now changes the font, it changes the color, and applies all of those formattings from that particular style to the text. So I'm going to add that to the middle of the screen. And then next, I'm going to grab a button element and draw it into the right-hand corner. And I will update the label to say sign up / login. All right, so I have my button and I also have my title. So if I go and preview this. Preview essentially means that you get to interact and see the page as if you were an end user or as if you are looking at it as a finished published app. So you get to preview what the page looks like. And by doing this, we get to see here. So two things here. We see both of the elements that we added. However, we see a huge gap in between them that was not present here in the app editor. So you're probably wondering, why is that occurring? So this has to do with a topic called responsiveness. And responsiveness essentially has to do with how the elements on your page move around on the page or are positioned on the page in response to the size of the screen they are being presented on. So I'm presenting this page on a monitor here, and the monitor is really, really wide. So the page is actually trying to stretch itself to fit the whole size of the monitor. So that's why when it stretches, there's a huge gap that's created here. And if we were to view this on a mobile device, it would possibly overlap the two elements or stack them on top of each other because the screen has been compressed now. So the way to resolve this for this training so that everything we see here looks the same way when we preview it, what we'll do is click on the page itself, so index and the property editor, and then we'll scroll down to the setting, make this element fixed width, and we'll select that. And by doing this, it will keep the page width, which is currently set to 1080. It will keep that same page width when we preview. So if we now go back, we'll see that that gap has disappeared and it looks the same way it does in the app editor. Ooh. So the next thing we will tackle is being able to sign up or allow current users to log in. So this pop-up that we see here that allows users to sign up or log in is actually a reusable element that also comes by default in every Bubble app. So to access it, you will click on your page dropdown, and there's also a section for reusable elements here, and we will select sign up login pop-up. So this is another way that Bubble has our back. Not only has Bubble created the user data type by default, they've also created a way to allow users to sign up or log into your app by default as well. So this comes with designs already for signing the user up, design for logging the user in, as well as design to allow an existing user to reset their password. And then if we go to the workflow tab, it also comes with workflows already built out to complete all of those actions. So it makes it really, really easy to get started with building your first app. So going back to our index page where we're building out our to-do app, to add that reusable element to our screen or to our page, we'll scroll down to the reusable element section, and we'll just click on that element, sign up, login pop-up, and we'll also draw that onto the screen. So now this pop-up is present on the page, and what we'll need to do next is construct the workflow that shows this element when the button is clicked. So I will go to the button here and click on it, and I'll start and edit the workflow. So when the button sign up login is clicked, this is where we'll add the actions. So the action we want to choose will actually be under element actions, and it'll be show because we want to show the sign up login pop-up when this button is clicked. So I'm going to select the element to show, which is the pop-up. And I'm just going to preview what this looks like so far. So here we have our button. So if we click on the sign up login pop-in, we see that it now shows this pop-up here that will allow users to sign up or log themselves in. So going back to the finished app, we already have the workflow to show this pop-up. However, when the user does finally log in, this button now says log out. And if we click it again, it completes a different action of logging the user out. So this is made possible due to conditionality. So conditionality means that you can apply certain rules to either workflows or to elements themselves so that they complete different actions or do different things when those rules are met. So we'll start off building this conditionality on the actual workflow. So we already have the first step of showing and signing up the pop-up. So we'll add the second section here, being able to log the user out. This will be under account, log the user out. And now we have both of those actions that this one button completes. So now we get to apply the rule or the conditional statement to each action so the app knows when to complete which one. So when the user is logged out, we want them to see the sign up login pop up so they can actually log in. So in this only when field is where we will apply that rule. So only when the current user is not logged in do we want to show the pop-up to allow them to log in. And for the log the user out action, only when the current user is logged in is when we want to allow them to log out. So now we'll do the conditional statement on the actual button by clicking on the button and then clicking on the conditional subtab in the property editor. And this is where we will add the conditional statement or the rule. So when the current user is logged in, we want the text to display log out. So if we preview what this looks like in our app, when we click on the button, we are currently not logged in. So it will show us the sign up login pop-up to allow us to log in. So I will create some credentials to do that. And then once we have logged in, we can see that the text now says log out. And if we click it once more, it will actually log the user out because we were previously logged in. So this is how you can use conditional statements to set up rules on either elements or workflows so that your app does different things depending on whether or not they fit the rule. So the next thing we'll go over is creating the secondary group of data that's visible here. So I'm going to go back to my app editor, and I'm actually going to grab a group element, and I'm going to draw that here on the screen. So you can think of a group element as a container, hence the category that it's held within, the containers category. And essentially a group can contain other elements within it. And any conditional statements or conditions applied to that group will also apply to any of the elements contained within it as well. So with the secondary group, it is made visible based off of conditionality as well. So we're also going to apply a conditional statement to this group. So we're already on the conditional tab. I'm going to define another condition. And the condition will be when the current user is logged in, that is the only time we want this group to be visible. So this element is visible and we'll check it off. So the last thing we need to do in order to control the visibility of this group based off of whether or not the user is logged in is by going to the Appearance tab and going to the setting that says this element is visible on page load. And we're going to uncheck that because by default, every element that you add onto your page will be visible whenever the page is loaded. So we want to get rid of that setting so that the element is only loaded when the user is logged in. So the next thing we'll build out is the dynamic text that's in the top left-hand corner that displays the date. So I'm going to delete this filler text here, and I'm going to actually click on Insert Dynamic Data because we don't want to go back each day and add the different date or update the date. We want to dynamically have the app already know what day it is and display the correct date. So by inserting the dynamic data, we will scroll down to the setting that says current date/time. And then we're going to click on this More button, which will allow us to format the date in a very specific way. So I'm going to click on Formatted As, and now I have many different options on how to display the date. So we'll choose this one here. Right. So next, what we will be building is these fields here that will capture the title as well as the due date from the user to create a new to-do item. So to do that, I will go down to the input forms category and select the first element, which is an input element. And here I'm going to type in some placeholder text. So originally it says type here, but I will edit that to say enter title. And then the only other thing we'll want to change about this element is selecting this setting here. This input should not be empty. We want to make sure to check that off because you wouldn't want users to create a to-do item in your database that does not have a title. So in order to prevent the user from creating a new database record, we will check that setting off and it will not run the workflow until data has been entered into this field. The next element we'll grab is the datetime picker element. And this will allow the user to choose a due date for their to-do item. The only thing we'll change here is selecting that same setting. This input should not be empty so that we don't have any to-do items that don't have due dates as well. And then last but not least, we'll select a button, draw it onto the screen, and I'll update the label to say So now we can start building the workflow that will create the new to-do item in our database by clicking this database. So we're going to start and edit a new workflow. And here is where we'll add an action. So when this button is clicked, we will go for the app to create a new database record. So we'll go down the database record. We'll go down the data name and select create a new thing. So first it'll ask what type of thing do you build, what kind of thing you want to create a new database record for. And we want to create a new to-do item. So we'll select to-do. And then it'll allow you to set fields depending on what information the user.
Maybe we have some. I think there's somebody that has his micro on. I put everyone in mute.
Okay.
Because there was an echo. Yes, it was Tracy, but no problem. It's okay.
All right. Does it sound better now? Okay, cool. So let me go back and explain. So now we've created the inputs to allow the user to input a title as well as the due date. And when this add to do button is clicked, we want to create a workflow to create a new to do item in our database. So the action that we added is create a new thing. And we have to specify what data type we want to create a new record for. And we want to create a new record for the to do data type. And now we'll get to input the information the user gives us into the fields that we set when we were creating our data structure. So for the title, we want the title to equal whatever the user inputted into the input for the title. So we'll set it to that input's value. For the due date, we'll do the same thing, whatever date the user chose in the date time picker element. And then for the done question mark field, we won't set anything for that field because we've already defaulted it to no. So we don't have to set anything there. And then the very last thing that we'll do here is a little bit extra, but it's actually a really nice UI practice. And that is to reset the inputs once the information has been collected. So this action will be under element actions and we will select reset relevant inputs. And this will essentially just clear out the text that the user entered once that database record has completely been created. So if we preview this, we're currently logged out. So once we log in, we get to see the secondary group of data, and that's because of the conditional statement set that allows us to see this group only when the user is logged in. We see the dynamic date here, and we have the 2 inputs in the button that we recently created. So if we were to just create a new to-do item without entering data in here, you can see that it outlines both of these inputs in red. And that's because we checked off this element, this input should not be empty setting. So that is preventing the user from creating a new item that doesn't have any data. So once we do enter data in here, such as go to the store, and we add the to-do, you can see that it deleted the title that I added, which was go to the store, and reset the date. So that's how the reset relevant inputs works, and why it's kind of a nice UI practice so you don't have to go back and backspace all of the text that you recently entered. So I'll enter a few more examples so we have more data to work with. So if we go back to our app and go to the data tab, and then go back to the app data sub tab, this is where you get to see all of the database records in your app. So before we only saw users because we only had one data type, but we also added to do. So now we get to see database records for those data types as well. So for users, we only have the one user I've used to sign up with so far. But under to-dos, we have those 4 to-do items that I have created just a second ago. And we can see that the title was stored, the due date was stored, and the done question mark field defaulted to no. And then we also see that the created by field is supplied with the user that was logged in when the to-do item was created. So they all are created by the same user, which is the one user that I used to sign up with. So we've created the data, stored it into our database, gone to where you can view that data. The next thing we'll need to do is create a way to see the list of to-do items that have not yet been completed. So I'm going to go back to our app and go to the design tab. And this time I'm going to select a repeating group. And you can think of a repeating group as a list of information that is being presented. So for every repeating group, it has different cells or different rows. You can kind of see them here. And each of those different rows is going to specify a different item in that list. So first we have to supply what kind of data is going to be displayed here. So we're going to display to-do items here. So I'm going to select to-do as the type of content. And then the data source is where you get to give the repeating group the list of to-do items that we'll be presenting. So to populate this list, I'm going to select do a search for, so we can search through our entire database for all of the to-do items that are there. However, I'm going to apply some constraints so that we get to see only specific to-do items here. So the first constraint that I will add is that the done question mark field must equal no, because we only want to see to-dos that have not yet been completed in this list. And then the second constraint that I will add is the constraint that the created by field must equal the current user. So the to-do items that have been created must belong to the user that is currently logged in. So this will prevent users from seeing other people's to-do items. And then last but not least, I'll add a sort on this list so that we can see all of the to-do items that need to be due the soonest at the top of the list, and then the ones that can be due a little bit later, closer to the bottom of the list. So the next thing I'll do is apply or add in the elements inside of the repeating group. So with the repeating group, you can only make changes in the first cell. So it's hard to kind of see. There we go. In the first cell here. And then it will automatically repeat in all of the following cells. So the design will be the same for each of the different cells. So I want to add a text element so I can see the title of each cell's to-do item. So I'm going to insert dynamic data, and I want to display the current cell's to-do. So the to-do item that's referenced in that cell. I want to show the title. And I will add another text element, delete the filler text, and insert dynamic data again, but this time it will be the current cell's due date. So this way I will dynamically get to see each of the to-do items title and due date for each of the different cells. So if I preview this now, we should only see the 4 to-do items that I created a second ago: going to the store, making coffee, demoing app, and trick-or-treating. And we can also see that it is sorted in a way where the ones that need to be due the soonest, so 14th, all the way down to the latest, which is the 31st. So we're almost done with this simple to-do at build. The last thing we'll need to do is add this icon here so that when it's clicked, it will remove it from our to-do item or from our to-do list and mark it as complete. So I will go to the left-hand side and grab this element called an icon, and I'll add it to the corner of the repeating group. And I will also change this to be something else, more like a check mark. Let's choose this one. So we've added the element into the repeating group. So now we have to set up the workflow that will make a change to the specific to-do item whenever that element is clicked. So if I click on the element and start a workflow from it, previously we chose the action to create a new thing, but this time we're going to choose the action to make a change to a thing because these to-do items already exist. So now it's going to ask, well, what to-do record do you want to change? We want to change the current cell's to-do. So whatever to-do item is referenced in that same cell that the icon is clicked in, we want to change that specific record. And the only thing we want to change there is the done question mark field, because it's defaulted to no, but by clicking it, we are assuming that it has been completed. So we're going to change it to yes. So now if we preview the app, for, let's say, the demo app action, if we completed it, when we click on this button, we can see that it's removed from our list. And if we go back to our database and our app data and refresh the data, we can see that for demo app, the done question mark field has been changed to yes. So because it's been changed to yes, that's why we no longer see it in our repeating group, because we are only viewing to-do items that are set to no for the done question mark field. So we're done with the simple demo app build. I will log out and just kind of recap all of the things that we were able to cover. So by clicking on the sign up login button, we have created a way for users to sign up for our app or log in if they're already existing. Once the user does log in, they can see the secondary group that is based off of conditionality. And in this group, we get to dynamically see the date each day. And we also have 2 inputs here to create a new to-do item. If we try to create an item that doesn't have data for these 2 fields, it will not let us do so until we do add information. And once we do add information in, we're able to successfully create that to-do item. And then it adds it to our list down here for us, where we only get to see our own to-do items. And then once we click on the icon to demonstrate that we've completed that, it will remove it from our list, and we can use that same button that we used to log in to now log out, also due to conditionality. So Thank you so much for watching as I demo this app. If you have any questions on anything that I covered here, definitely jot it down and I'll go over it in the Q&A, which we'll have in a few minutes. But the next thing I want to show you all is where you can find some additional learning resources, because Bubble definitely does have a learning curve. And we've created an academy to help our users learn how to do more things and develop more things in their Bubble apps. So this is bubble.io/academy. And in the academy, we have lots of different learning resources. If you're a more visual learner, we have videos here, which include 30-second quick tips all the way up to full-fledged video series that will walk you through, for example, how to build your first app, from your database to designing to workflows, all the way to deploying your app to live. So those are really helpful. We have our written manual, which has a lot of detail, especially if you like to read in order to learn new things. Lots of ins and outs here. And we also have information on Bubble Built plugins stored here as well. We have boot camps and coaches that you can book sessions with if you prefer to learn one-on-one. A few interactive lessons, which will actually go into the app editor like we were today, and have different buttons for you to click on to really learn how to do development inside of the app editor. And then last but not least, one of my favorite learning resources is our How to Build series. So this is essentially looking at some of the most popular web apps that are out there and building clones of those web apps. So for instance, we have Instagram, Dropbox. I know we also have Facebook, Uber Eats, and it shows you how to build some of the core features of those platforms and how to do so in Bubble in a written tutorial. So those are really, really neat and really helpful. And then last but not least, me and my team at support.io at support@bubble.io is also another form of learning resources. If you ever get stuck or have any questions about anything, you can email us and we'll help point you in the right direction and supply as many resources as we can to help you move forward in your development. But other than that, I now will give the floor to you all for any questions that you may have. I know we covered a lot of information. So any questions you have would be